Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another Tuesday DaaS Sales Workshop, and we will dive right in here in the next 60 seconds or so. Let me just give it a minute or two. We all know every week there's a couple of stragglers that come in late, so I always give everybody a minute or two. Looks like at least a couple of new faces on this week, so that's nice to see. Jen, always nice to see your beautiful face as well. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. And maybe we have a smaller crew this week. We'll give it one more minute, though. It's a little bit long. All right, I'll keep the waiting room open either way, but we can just dive right in. So again, guys, another Tuesday DaaS Sales Workshop where the main objective of what I cover in my area of expertise is primarily around the sales, right? I kind of work with anything in the front end of the data, so whether it's sales messaging, scripts, overcoming objections, sales processes, how to educate prospects, anything along those lines. So if you guys have any questions or anything specifically that you would like to ask or have me cover, just comment in the chat and I will get to those, momentarily. But we're gonna dive off with some sales training and just going over a few things. So as I kind of do on every week session, again, I just said I see a couple of new faces. And I know each week we're enrolling new clients. Maybe some people weren't at the point where they were ready to start sales yet. So they were only, attending office hours or incubator workshops or other things. I know there's, generally speaking, weekly, there's at least one or two new faces on these. So maybe redundant for some of you guys that attend weekly. But the thing I share with all of the, students or attendees on my workshops each week is this particular document right here. So again, this is nothing, aesthetically pleasing or pretty. This is just a resource with the 7 links or 7, they're all links, resources, whether they're, documents, tutorials, scripts. These are really the 7 resources needed to build out an efficient and effective sales process when we are selling DaaS. Now, this will work for damn near any niche or industry, but this one in these particular resources are more geared toward, selling data for obvious reasons. This is a DaaS sales workshop. But, number one is just a document overviewing the entire sales process, game plan, timeline, expectations, what's needed. Number 2 on my document here is just a little tutorial going over this document, making sure everybody understands. I expound upon it and make it a little more clear. Number 3 is just going to show you some examples of email, outreach messaging, ads, the creative that we're using today to get new data clients in, as I say, daily, weekly, monthly, and consistently. Numbers 4 and 5 on my screen are a couple of the scripts that we use. Number 4 would be your triage call, your initial call, 15-20-minute call, generally speaking, with the prospect. And then number 5 is more for your demo or your sales call and more for the longer script. Number 6 is a good little overview of the pitch deck that you guys can just literally swap out slide 1 and put your own brand, image, likeness, and then use this as a pitch deck to go close data deals. This is not branded toward audience lab whatsoever, but we do give you slides that show you the steps to using in-market audiences and how it's valuable, where the pixel comes in, case studies, and all the stuff you guys can use. And then number 7 is just about a 15 or 20-minute video that I created based upon some DaaS clients' request when they wanted me to go into a little more depth about pixel pricing and give them some tools. So within that video, number 7, within the description is like a pixel calculator overview. So you can kind of, again, I would say generally speaking, you need to know some of the numbers, and I explain it in the video, but just by knowing the average amount of site visitors your client or your prospect gets per month, their average order value and their average conversion rate, we can really quickly throw that into the pixel calculator to try to estimate what the generated revenue they're missing out on and what we can get for them by utilizing the pixel on their site. So right now, guys, I'm going to go drop this in the chat for everybody that wants to have this link that may not have got it in the past. So you can click on it, copy and paste it, save it, whatever you want to do. I just dropped it there in the Zoom chat, and I see we have one question. So let me just look really quickly. I have a question about where to find the Gmail merge template Adam referred to in this video. Yeah, I'll get back to you on that. I'm not sure of the video. And again, what I covered, Dwayne, and again, I can find you the answer to that. But what I'm here to cover is more about the sales and marketing side of things. The Gmail merge template. Yeah, again, let me just save this. And I will go check this out after the session, just so I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm not going to take a time out in the middle of the workshop, but Dwayne, I will get an answer or that resource sent over to you a little later. Great. So that is in the chat for all of you guys. And let me get into what I want to cover today. So basically within this, within this document number 1 and 2, where I start to build out the sales process, I know not everybody has gone through it. Not everybody will go through it. So I'm going to go through a quick little overview of what's covered in there. It's going to be a little more in-depth and a little more lengthy in the tutorial than I may cover here today. But there's some things that I know a few of you guys have never seen or never seen me really talk about that I think is really, really relevant. So where I want to start is building up the sales process, right? Anybody that's ever going to be selling anything, whether it's you doing it yourself, whether you want to build out a team, whether you want to delegate to a rep, what have you, we still need a sales process, right? We can't just fly by the seat of our pants and say, okay, I booked a call. Now what do I go do? Let me just wing it, right? And we can operate that way, but it's not going to leave much predictability in the outcome, right? And we're never going to really have a structure to follow. So I think it's really, really important and relevant to know how to build out sales processes. Let's talk about that really, really quickly. This is what I would call the usual, or maybe even the old sales method. Now, the reason I still call it the usual is because this is still most prevalent in a majority of industries or businesses where I go in and look at their process. I think it's the old method because I've gone away from this years ago, but it's still the usual method in the sense that it's the one being used by a majority of companies, specifically of remote sales companies in the industry. So what most companies do is, right, however you get the initial engagement, you run an ad, a piece of content, you run an email campaign, whatever it is, for them to kind of raise their hand and say, yeah, Ray, I'd love more information about that, right? Step 1. Then we're going to take them to either, I see this in 2 most common, there's other things we can do here, but I'm going to lay out the most common ones. The 2 most common next steps are I take them to a pre-qualifying application form where I gather information, or I just take them to a 15-minute triage conversation. I much prefer the latter, but if you have a business where the application is fleshed out, it pre-qualifies, it works well, it converts, and it gets only qualified people through to your sales calls, by all means. If you can automate it, automate it. I still like the personal touch, and I've still not to this day been able to ever create a form that is going to pre-qualify as good as one of my triage reps or me doing a triage myself. So that's just my personal preference there, right? You can do whatever you like. And then ultimately to a sales call, right? So that's what I would call the usual method. And we've probably all seen this, or maybe this is what we're currently doing, right? Now, some of the issues with that is when we don't get closed deals and we're not getting efficiency, effectiveness, profits, revenue out of our sales process, and we try to go back and reverse engineer it and find out, like, where's my gaps, what's going wrong, we come up with all these questions, right? Like, hey, was it the call or the messaging that was wrong? Did I push too hard or maybe not hard enough, right? Was the prospect even a good fit? So we start to come in with all these questions, and we can't really track it back to anything specific in terms of data or metrics because our sales process really hasn't given us, okay, so maybe I think it's the messaging. So what do I have to go back and tweak? And it's really hard to pinpoint that and go back and make adjustments. What we're always doing, guys, in our marketing, in our sales processes, in our fulfillment, in our client journey, we're always optimizing. We're always trying to make it better. We're always getting that feedback loop. And if we don't have the process set up right, you don't really know what phase to go back and fix, right? So I just think there's way too many variables. But when we can map this out into a micro commitment 6-step process, like I like to use in damn near every sales team I build, I run, I consult on, I like this process. So let me break this down really quickly. In the old process, we had steps 1, 2, and 3, correct? What that is in this process is steps 1, 3, and 6. That would be 1, 2, and 3 in the old one, is 1, 3, and 6 in this one, which means steps 2, 4, and 5 are ultimately new if we're talking about that old or usual sales method, things that a lot of people aren't currently implementing or executing on within their sales process internally. So I want to break those down and tell you why they make a difference. And then I can show you now when I know I'm getting no-shows or big objections or people that are confused or uneducated, I can go back to be like, oh, I need to go change step 2 in my process or step 4 or whatever. I can reverse engineer it back to an actual step and say, this is my gap. I need to go hone this in. So I'll break these down really, really quick. Again, step 1 doesn't really change. We always have to create engagement. And guys, we could do that in a number of ways. I'll name the most prevalent. Again, we could run ads. We could be creating social media content. We could be doing email campaigns, right? Whatever, anything that's creating engagement. We currently are doing that in all 3 ways. So I was going to say which one, we're using all 3 of those. The more we can do, the better, right? The more avenues of outreach, the more likelihood we are to get actual engagement. So keep that in mind. Now, step 2, this is a new step, and this is where I like to say assigning the new frame. And everybody's probably thinking, if they're not sure, like, what the hell does that mean, assigning the new frame? So after we create that engagement with our content, ad, or whatever, we kind of need to reframe them. And that could be a number of different ways. Let's use one of the most basic examples there are out there, right? Hey, I've scaled to like 10K months, and now I'm kind of being told my next step is to go run Facebook ads to scale to the next level, right? Let's say like your ad is about running more profitable Facebook ads or transition people from, from organic content or whatever they're doing into ads. And everybody always thinks that's like the next leap, right? But I could come in and assign a new frame and be like, hey, before you necessarily jump into running paid ads, Jim, right? Have you ever considered this? Have you ever had your offer really pressure tested, meaning how it's priced, positioned, packaged, how the value is perceived? Because it might be that you're significantly undercharging right now. And if you go to market with paid ad campaigns with a less than market value offer, it's going to be really hard to create profitable metrics. So what if we could ultimately charge double and validate that organically and then turn into paid ads where our metrics are night and day, right? And what that means in basic layman's terms, if I work with a company and we're running ads, or I'm helping them run ads and they have a $1,500 offer, well, if I can help them repackage, reposition that, and reprice that to be $3,000 and still show the same or more perceived value to the marketplace, when I start running ad campaigns with a $3,000 average order value as opposed to $1,500, it's going to make metrics totally different. My conversion rates will have to be lower ultimately to be profitable. Everything will change. So that's assigning a new frame. This person thinks they just need to go run ads. I'm going to reframe them and say, hey, let's go back and look at your offer first and make sure everything is dialed in. You might be right. It might be time to run ads, but I won't know until we do this. Does that make sense, Jim, the prospect, or whatever, right? So assigning a new frame. And there's a lot of different ways we do that. Usually our engagement will take them to step 2, where I would assign the new frame. And I would be doing that in a quick little short video, pretty much just explaining what I was explaining there. Now, let's give a better example in terms of using Audience Lab and DaaS and data, right? It could be somebody clicks on your ads and they're like, hey, I'm running Facebook ads and I'm just not profitable. And I just have to keep going back and creating new creative. So, can you help me with my creative and Facebook ads? And then I'm going to say, hey, man, maybe your creative is excellent and it's just not converting because we're targeting the wrong audience. You see, what most people don't know, Jim, is as a business owner, when you go into Facebook and you tick that box that says, let Facebook find my ideal audience, they're taking a good chunk of your budget and they're running it through a testing phase to try to find your ideal audience, which means they're going to be bringing in lower quality and quantity leads than you should be getting for that budget. See, where most people go wrong is they go back and swap up creative every couple of weeks, but they never dial in the targeting, so they never hit the right cost per lead, cost per acquisition to have profitable ads. You see, what we do here to help our clients get better results is we build them an in-market, pre-existing winning audience that we just loop right into their ad manager and run their creative directly to that, which eliminates the testing phase. We already have the ideal audience, and almost overnight, you're going to see your cost per lead and cost per acquisition drop by 25 to 40%. Does that make sense? Right? And that's how I'm going to switch him from the frame of, I got to go swap out creative every 2 weeks to, hey, maybe we want to focus on the targeting and the audience. Maybe the creative's great. You're just not getting it in front of the right people, right? So there's another way. I could go on and on, but that's just a couple of baseline examples. Now, once they've bought into the new frame, yes, Ray, that does make sense. How do I find out more, right? Then we would take them to step 3, which again, I prefer this to be a triage call. And just so you can see, it's in the document provided. But this is the whole triage call script and framework that I've built most of my sales teams off. I'm going to go back to this and cover this a little today if we have time, but it's in that document that I have provided in the chat here already. and I know a couple people hopped on late or came in after, so I'll go drop the link again. Don't worry about that. But let me get back to where I was. So step three, application form or a triage call, which I prefer. And then most people, as you saw in the above process, the usual method, they would go from that triage call or application form right to the sales call, right? That's what a lot of people do. Well, we inject two more steps in before the close call, which is assigning homework and creating alignment with that prospect. And what does that exactly mean? So the homework is really just a video that's going to give them, I would say your first video, right, in step two is more to assign a new frame and create intrigue, curiosity. So people are like, yes, I want to find out more. Now, your homework assignment that you would present and build and ultimately send to the prospect after a triage call would be somebody that you already know is pre-qualified. And again, as I always say, guys, in step two, the triage call, there's really two primary objectives to that call. There's other little things in there, certainly. But number one is to pre-qualify and make sure they're a good fit for your product, your solution, your service. They actually have the problem that you solve, et cetera, et cetera. Number two is to get a soft yes in terms of a financial commitment. You guys have probably heard me say this over and over, but something along the lines of, hey, Jen, when we meet for your call Friday at 2 p.m., if you see a clear path on how to inject data into your ad campaigns to lower your cost per lead and acquisition, would there be anything that would stop us from investing and furthering our business on that call? Right? That would be a question that I would ask as a soft yes financial pre-qualifier. I ask it in that way because I want them to think about it and give me objections. I don't want to just say, hey, Jen, if everything makes sense when you meet with Mark, would you be willing to invest? Because a lot of times people don't think and they just nod and say yes. I want to ask, is there anything that would prevent you from investing? So I might hear, well, it depends on the budget, my partner, my business partner, my spouse, whatever. Let's get that out now so we can overcome that before the close call. A lot of people, and as you saw in the usual or the old method, right? We would go right from step 3 to step 6. In the old method, it was step 2 to step 3, right? And then we would get on the call, and a lot of times we would find out why the deal wouldn't close on that call. Hey, everything sounds great today, Ray, but I can't move forward without my spouse's approval, right? Wouldn't it have been better if I knew that before the call than all the way when I got to the end of my pitch? So all the ways that we can draw out those objections or anything that would, slow down the deal cycle or the sales cycle earlier in the process is better. So then when I assign that homework, that's usually going to be a video that's going to give them a lot more clarity and certainty in the efficacy of my solution to the overarching problem that we talked about. In this case, having trouble with targeting, wasting money on, the targeting phase or the learning phase that does, et cetera, et cetera. So the homework assignment that I use most often for a lot of our data clients specifically, some of you guys, if you've ever been on a call with me where I sent you resources that might look familiar, Jen, you've seen my calls and been through my training, so this will be familiar to you. But what I found in a majority of the data clients I speak with and what I normally send, just so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about, I bring up this resource and I'm like, hey, Jen, so basically we're going to set that second call Friday at 2 p.m. with Mark. Hey, in the meantime, I'm going to send you over this quick little video, and I want you to go through these two things specifically. So when I send this to you, Jen, click on the audience builder video, and that's going to take you down to a quick little 4.5, 5-minute video where my business partner and co-founder, Adam, shows you exactly how we build a high-intent custom audience, in this case of about 210,000 leads in about 4 minutes. So here you're going to see our whole user interface, how we segment that lead. And just so you know, this is for a very specific niche and industry and for a very particular marketing campaign and objective. So when you watch this, Jen, one of two things should happen, right? Number one, oh, shoot, what Ray was talking about, this is exactly what I'm looking for and what I need. Yes, right, let's get on that call and find out more. Or you might find out, hey, this isn't quite what I thought it was. This isn't quite what I need. And at least we'll know that and we can part ways as friends and just have a quick little call when we reconnect. Right. The other thing that I think would be relevant because, the audience builder is great to get leads direct to consumer and for your clients. But since you're an agency going after other business owners, I think it might be relevant for you to also see our B2B builder. So here's about an 8-minute video telling you exactly how we target the ideal businesses and how you can get those leads for your own agency or your B2B clients. Now, I would say the big difference between our B2C graph and our B2B is really twofold. Number one, we both know there's a lot more consumers than there are business owners. So there's going to be more data in the B2C graph. Number two, the way we target our ideal client is going to be a little different when we're going after business owners. So if you could check out these two videos, wouldn't take up more than 15 minutes of your time. That way you're going to have a lot better understanding. And when you meet with Mark Friday at 2 p.m. for your call, you guys can have a lot more clarity and really hit the ground running. Does that make sense? Yeah, Ray, it does. Yeah, sure, no problem. I can give you 15 minutes. Now, the alignment phase is something else that we do in a lot of cases, especially if there's like a DM setter involved. We're still using more organic methods and maybe not all from an automated funnel. Now, from an automated funnel, we do this in a little different manner, but I'll tell you the more manual first, because most of our DaaS clients are still running a little more of a manual sales process, whether they're generating conversations and appointment setting themselves, whether they have a VA or hourly employee, things like that. What the alignment phase is basically all the information from my call that I had with the prospect, and now I'm setting them with my closer, Mark, Friday at 2 p.m. Like I said, I'm going to create a quick little messenger thread, and it's just going to overview the conversation and get those two introduced. Because what happens in so many sales processes is, okay, Jen, I'm going to book you for that call with Mark Friday at 2 p.m. Look forward to you guys chatting. And then there's no communication, no open chain of communication, and the prospect and the rep don't know anything about one another until they get on that call. And that's also a higher risk for no-shows when there's been no more engagement or communication. Again, let's say I booked you in on Tuesday, but your call's not till Friday. I want to stay in communication. So we create a three-way messenger thread, something like this. I would craft it as a triage rep. Let's say Jen was my prospect and I'm introducing her to Mark. It would be something like this. Hey, Mark, I'd love you to introduce you to Jen. Her and I spoke today for a little while, and I got to have a little understanding of her business and what she's looking to accomplish. I set her on your calendar for Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Basically, Jen is running paid ads and she's having trouble, with profitability. She's up and down, and she's almost thinking about pulling the plug on Facebook ads. So let's show her how our platform can help her build ideal audiences, target better, and lower cost per lead and acquisition. I'll leave it to you guys to connect from here. Boom. You do that messenger thread, and that's how we can stand out in the prospect journey, right? We always hear companies and trainings talking about the customer journey or experience, which is certainly important. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think many people focus on the prospect journey. And how can I stand out in my sales process so they don't feel like they're just jumping on another call, just like the one they hopped on yesterday or the day before. So when you can stand out in this process, the prospect realizes it. Trust me. You guys would be surprised how many sales calls I've had when I get to the end and they're like, dude, Ray, this was so much different. This was the best call I've ever been on. For me, that's hugely rewarding to hear, because that's one of my focuses. So when they say that, I know that I've done my job and how to stand out, right? And people don't say that stuff, but they don't mean it, especially on a sales call from a stranger that they didn't know for more than 20 minutes, right? So creating that alignment phase shows the prospect you listened, you cared, and it opens up a chain of communication. And of course, I would say that to the prospect on the call after I sign the homework. Hey, Jen, I'm also going to do a three-way messenger thread. I'm going to give you a little introduction to Mark. And that way you guys have an open chain of communication, just in case something happens Friday and one of you guys is running over in a previous meeting or something comes up. At least you guys have an open chain of communication. So keep your eye out for that, right? And I'm going to include that all when I talk about that. So yeah, and then the close call is pretty self-explanatory. But again, what we give you guys in that document that, again, for anyone that hopped on late, I'll go provide the link. But this is our script or framework for the close call or the demo call, and exactly how to go through that. So depending on time, I'll go through these scripts a little bit further and make sure you guys have a good understanding. But they are both in this main document here that, again, I'm going to go, excuse me one second. Just for anybody that hopped on late and wasn't sure what document I was talking about or hasn't yet seen it, let me just drop that there. Perfect. Cool. So that's kind of what I'm covering here on all of this stuff outside of this big slideshow. This big slideshow that I'm going over, like the sales processes, that's covered and shown to you guys again in numbers 1 and 2 on here, but it is not. It's not something I share with everybody because it's kind of a lengthy thing and it's more of a private student type of thing, but I go through everything that's applicable. So that's the sales process, right? Now, what I want to show you guys here is, again, I've already kind of explained this, but this kind of breaks it down further. And again, I cover this a little more in the video tutorial in that list I gave you. But what I can show you now is, like, if I'm getting constant rejections or I think about it, right? I know because I'm getting that, I probably didn't do a good job assigning the new frame and people aren't totally bought in. So now I can ask myself, does your frame about the real problem resonate or even make sense to find to try this particular solution, right? So usually if I'm getting, I'll think about it, I'm not sure, those kind of typical sales, I wouldn't even call those objections. Those are just more sales resistance. That's not even really an objection because you don't have like a concrete thing that's holding them back. That usually just means they're not fully understanding it and fully bought in. Generally speaking, I know if I go back and make a better resource that assigns a new frame, I'm going to overcome that. Or I might get constant no-shows. That either means I'm not doing a good job or not assigning something of value in my homework phase. So if I get on step 3, I get on a call, I do all my thing, I pre-qualify them, I set them for a call with myself or the closer, and then I either don't send resources or I send something that's not of value, that they're not learning anything new, that they're not getting more understanding about our solution to the problem and not educating them a little more. That way, when they get on that call, they're actually in the buying pocket. I probably have to go back and hone in on the homework that I'm sending over. And I could go on and on. Now, if I just get that very basic, we get to the end and, hey, Jen, you said everything sounds good. Are we ready to rock and roll and move forward? Ray, I think I'm going to pass. That I found can come back to 2 things. Can either be the new frame or that they didn't feel like you've ever set alignment and they're just kind of feeling like you're another basic company like every other call they've been on. They're not going to give you like a concrete objection. They're just going to be like, I'll pass. I'm looking at options. I'll get back to you. That's really just a brush off and you're probably never going to hear back from them, right? So yeah, that's just a good little overview there. If I'm getting no response at all from the jump, my initial engagement probably isn't good, whether that's email, ad, content, videos, whatever. If we're just not getting any responses in the beginning, we probably didn't do a good job creating engagement, right? Giving a free resource to book appointments and no one replies. Again, frame was never assigned before giving the resource. So like, hey, you've given me this resource, but I don't even really know what I'm looking at because I didn't do a good job explaining or assigning the frame. So again, to get one big high ticket sale, one closed deal, it's really 6 small compounding micro commitments that make this more and more effective. So yeah, that's just a quick little overview on that. If anybody has any questions on that, just type anything in the chat, anything you want me to clarify. But I'm going to go into, and I'll go back to the questions momentarily. Since I have a little more time, I'm going to dive into the 2 scripts really, really quickly, and then I'm going to leave some time for a Q&A here. So the triage framework. And again, just because this is lengthy, this isn't all stuff we're saying on the call. This is also a training document. So what we're going to be saying is either going to be in bold or italicized, or you're going to understand, and then there's going to be an explanation underneath it. So again, one of the things, and I was actually on a call with somebody earlier, I was yesterday, I was going to say earlier in the week, today's Tuesday, it was yesterday, with a guy who's closed deals. He's a DaaS client. He also does a couple of other services. He's not just selling DaaS. He was telling me about problems he's having on calls, pre-framing the calls, things like that. And one of the things that would really help them if he embedded something like this in there, and I'll get to that in a second, right? But one of the things I like to start with after I, again, small talk, break the ice, whatever that is, where you calling in from, what's the weather, favorite sports team, whatever, breaks the ice and starts to build a little rapport. Then when you dive into it, I always like to start with a question like this. So, Jeffrey, tell me, what inspired you to really hop on the call today? And they're either going to say, well, I saw your ad where you talked about your, DaaS resellers program, or I saw your in-market audiences, or I got an email where you guys talked about this promotion, whatever. That's really going to give me good feedback about what angle, what hook, what content, what ad is actually inspiring people or, creating people to actually book a call, right? So I always start off with that question. And then I always like to ask something like this. So, hey, Jeff, we have about 15 or 20 minutes to speak here today. In a perfect world, what would you like to see or know about before the end of this call? And this is the most common one I get. Well, Ray, I'd really love to understand more about how the system works and the pricing. All right, great. Jeff, I'll be sure to cover that momentarily. Right now, quite frankly, I really don't know anything about your business, and I'm not quite sure if we can help. So I will dive into that in just 2 or 3 minutes. But if it's cool right now, can you give me some background on what you do, your offer, your price point, your niche, right? Or any other offer any other info that you think is relevant to this call. And that is a good, what I call loaded question, where you're going to just get them to open up and talk, right? And I usually get one of 2 things here. Somebody will give me like 8 paragraphs and answer all of these and more, Or they might be very concise. Well, Ray, I run a Facebook ad agency. We charge 2,500 per month, and we service the home services niche. Right? They could be very, very straight to the point and just give me that. That's still good info I need. Or a lot of people like to talk about their business and will expound and not only tell you that, they'll say how long they've been in business, how many employees they have, where they're at with revenue, what problem. Like they might go a lot deeper. By asking that open-ended question, that's going to lead right into the kind of gathering intel phase, whatever you want to call it, discovery, situation, right? And usually we kind of want to know what type of companies we're working with and how established they are. So although we're trying to ask how much are you making per month, I never say it like that. I say it like this. So tell me, what's the current monthly revenue of your business, and where would you like it to be at in the next 90 days or so? So now I can get an understanding where they're at, where they'd like to be, and it's going to help me really assess and assign the gaps that can help them kind of bridge that revenue gap or that growth gap that they're looking for in terms of revenue. So again, when we want to ask anything this direct, we have to know how to phrase it and word it in a way that is going to not be very off-putting, but B, get a little bit of a lengthy response. If I just say how much you're making a month and they're cool with it and they don't get pissed off by that, they're just going to come back saying, well, Ray, I make 10K. Rather than asking like this, well, Ray, I'm currently making 10K per month. I'd love to be at 20K a month in the next 90 days or so. And I really feel like the gap is my cost per lead and acquisition just aren't there for me to hit that, right? That would be a much better answer than I'm just at 10K. So when I do these questions, specifically in the gathering intel, the discovery phase, I always like to make them two-part questions. The only one I make a real loaded question with more than two parts is that first one up here. Like I said, I want to get them just talking, and I'm going to ask about offer, price point, niche, any other pertinent info, how long you've been in business. I just want a real loaded question. And then whatever else they didn't cover, I'm going to go down and find out here. So I might say, cool, so what's your current sales process? And actually, before I get into that, in many cases, I'll want to know the current, marketing or lead generation process. And then we're going to want to dive into further things. So what did you like about that process? What didn't you like, right? So like, what have you tried that hasn't worked? What did you like about that process? So this is just an example of all the different questions and ways you can word it. Now, once I'm kind of through the discovery or the intel phase, hold on, guys, give me 1 minute. I think each workshop I get an a door interruption with her barking, so that's par for the course. But yeah, once you get through the discovery phase and the intel, and you kind of realize like, hey, this is my ideal prospect, whatever that is for you, right? Entry level, mid level, they're suffering from the right problem. We then transition to the advisors, the next step, right? So this will run through all of that in much more depth, and I do in that video as well. But basically, again, this is kind of the verbiage I use to recommend. Hey, Jeff, what I'd recommend from here, based on everything we've done, and I know we're kind of running short on time here with a 15-minute call, I recommend getting on one other call with my senior advisor, Mark, so he can chat with you further and see if this is something that makes sense for you and show you the exact path you need to get from that 10 to 20K month in the next 90 days. Would you be open to having that call? Now, once they're open to that, right, I'm going to dive into, as I talked about earlier, the soft yes. And when I do that, it's like, now if everything makes sense on your end, right, and you can see a clear path to hitting 20K months, lowering your cost per lead acquisition, and of course the finances line up and make sense as well, would there be anything that would stop you from investing to further your business on that call with Mark, right? So this will show you all the verbiage I use and the whole overview of a triage call. Now, lastly, I want to go into the sales framework and then go back to for Q&A really quick. By the sales framework, I mean this one is a little more in-depth, and this would be more for a sales call or a demo. My mistake. I just got to shut my door because my dog's still going nuts. So again, very similar, and I wouldn't necessarily be redundant with this one. Like if I ask this on the first call and we've already had a triage and I've set them for the advisor can also start off with, and this is maybe a better one for people that are not doing this themselves, right? It's a little different if you're doing like the triage call and the closing call yourself. not much changes here. You just wouldn't be saying, hey, I'm going to book you with Mark, and you're going to say, hey, I'm going to book you for a second call with me in 2 days. But when I do that, I like to start off that call often with, hey, did you get a chance to check out the resource that I sent you over, that 4 and 8 minute video respectively, right? And just make sure, and then I could be like, cool, what were your takeaways, and what did you like about that? We can start the sales call if we've done the homework and alignment right, and they've gone through it. We can start the sales call with them already talking about what they like about our process, what they like about our software, our solution, our coaching program, our service, whatever that is, right? So that's a really good way to start as well. But things I always want to, what are you hoping to get out of the call? What you already know about us is also very good, because we're going to talk to a prospect different that has consumed hours of our videos, been through our VSL, than a guy that's like, hey, I saw your ad for 60 seconds and I clicked and I know nothing else about you, right? I'm going to talk to those people in a different manner, and I'm going to run the call differently. So those are some really good things. Now, again, in the situation phase, especially when like they just spoke with either yourself or another rep on a triage call a day or two earlier, at this part, you're just kind of reiterating and solidifying the information. You don't have to ask all these questions over and over again, but you might just start off with a basic one. Hey, just so I have a better understanding, Jeff, can you give me an overview of your business and what's currently happening, and just get them talking? And then what I've found is there's usually somewhere between 6 and 8 data points or questions that I want to really assess before I start to dive into the pitch and stuff. So each one of these hash marks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I said between 6 and 8. In this case, there was 7, right? But these are the things I usually want to find out or be certain of. Or again, sometimes I might just be reiterating by the notes that were given to me by the triage call representative. But could be things like, who do you serve and what results do you deliver? Or for instance, who do you serve and how do you charge for your services? So again, you're going to see a lot of 2-part questions, because I don't really just want 1-word answers. Who do you serve? Roofers. Okay, then I got to pick up the momentum again, right? Who do you serve and how do you charge? Well, Ray, I serve roofers and I charge on a retainer plus performance-based scale, kind of like this, and get them talking a little. Great. So how long have you been running this offer? How many clients are you currently working with? Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear, Jeff. Excellent. Well, how many would you like to be working with? Or more, maybe better yet, how many can you actually take on and handle right now? Well, Ray, I'm currently working with 10. Ideally, our infrastructure and where I'm at, I'm set to handle 20 easily. Gotcha. So what are you currently doing to acquire existing clients? Well, I'm currently running email campaigns and some social media marketing, whatever. Cool. Okay. And what do you like about that process or method? Well, I like that it's free and there's no ad spend. Okay, I dig that. Well, on the other, end of the spectrum, what don't you like about that process, or what's not working? Well, I did say it's free, there's no ad spend, but it takes a lot of time to create new content, to draft new emails, yada, 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 right? So you're going to find out what they do and don't like about their process. And then just because I have 1 or 2 more questions, and just to kind of break this up in the middle. Now, before I go into exactly what we do and how that would look in your business specifically, is it cool if I just ask you like 2 more questions so I can really give you the best recommendations and suggestions for you specifically? Yeah, sure, Ray, that's fine. Great. So based on what we've discussed thus far, you're looking at potentially using this for your brand directly or for your clients, right? That might be something I would do specifically with our data. Okay, that makes sense. So for your business particularly, let's dive into some of the applicable numbers, right? So if somebody, guys, when you're going to individual brands, and this is much more applicable to our DaaS resellers, these are some of the metrics you're going to want to know so we can give the best recommendations, and so we can also use some of the tools we have, right? So then naturally, organically, I'll give examples. Oh, that was more of a talking point. Transition into the following topic. So, okay, so you're looking to use this for yourself and get better results. Jeff, can you give me a little more overview of, you already told me the number of clients, you're currently working with 10, but how many orders do we get per month? What's the average order value? What's the conversion percentage on your website or your landing page? What's your close percentage when you get people on calls? Do we know how many monthly visitors you get to your website? By knowing those metrics, I can really go in and do a much better job when I get to the pitch or the presentation. Okay, so there's some main phases here. Number 1 is the introduction, where we break the ice and just start some entry-level questions. Number 2 is a situation, gather intel, discovery, whatever terminology. Then we're going to dive into problem, impact of problem, solution, impact of solution. Now, these are optional in many cases. I wouldn't say every time you have to dive into these. Now, finding the problem, I always dive into a little more, because in the discovery or situation phase, we've usually heard them talk about the problem, right? What didn't work? What didn't you like about this process? You're at 10K and you're trying to get to 20. What do you think is the gap? So they talk a little about the problem. Now I just want to get to the root or the real problem, because a lot of times when we speak to business owners, to prospects, they're going to give us surface or symptom level problems. Not making enough money, my ads aren't converting. Like, those are all very surface, but like I can get to the root of it. But like, okay, so what do you think is causing that problem? Well, how long has that been a problem? Right. And then we might get to, oh, okay, so you're not making enough money or your ads aren't profitable. The real problem is you're not sure how to target. You're not sure if your creative is effective. Cool. Now we can really, right. So we just want to isolate it down from a surface or symptom level issue to a root or a real issue. Right. And then again, a little more advanced when applicable. This is a good question, but there's some people where it just doesn't flow right, or certain sales processes or products where it doesn't jive well. But I like to say, okay, so what impact is that having on you, either professionally or personally? Get them to open up a little more about it. Now, when we dive into solution, and I talked about this, I think on one or two workshops ago, very briefly, what a lot of reps will do is once they've gone through the situation or discovery phase, they've dove into the problem and maybe even deeper, the root problem and the impact of the problem, they dive right into the solution. They're like, hey, Jeff, based on everything we've discussed, where you're at, where you're trying to get to, and the problem you're suffering, I feel like our product is the ideal solution. Is it cool if I show you how we've helped 10 other agencies working with roofers, be able to lower their costs in ads? Which doesn't sound bad, guys, and it's not. I make that transition a little later. I always like to start with this question. What does an ideal solution look like to you? Right. And I like to make it a little more specific. I left it vague here because you're going to tweak it depending on what your offer, your services is. But basically, in an ideal world, Jeff, if you're to partner with a first party data provider like ourselves, what would an ideal outcome be if you're using a data provider? And they're going to say, well, I would like to, enhance my targeting, and I would like to drop my cost per lead and cost per acquisition. Like, that's my ideal solution. The only way this one ever backfires, and then I'll give you the way to handle that, is, well, right, I'm not really sure what an ideal solution looks like. You're the expert. I'm just here kind of listening. All right, I totally get it, Jeff. Let me rephrase. In an ideal world, you partner with a data company, your ads are performing better. What are the metrics looking like? How is your business looking 30, 60, 90 days down the road? Foreshadow what's different and what you're seeing. Okay, so just lay it out for them. If you have this solution, what is the ideal result or outcome? In some of our businesses, they might be like, oh, well, now I'm able to outsource this and have more time, or I'm able to see, drops in cost per acquisition by 25%. That would be an ideal outcome, whatever. But when they tell me what the ideal outcome, the ideal solution, the ideal result they're looking for, that really helps me customize the pitch when I get to pitch, because I do always customize the pitch. I say this often. I could take 8 sales calls for the same offer all day, and I might pitch it 8 different ways the way I go present. Very often I would pitch it 8 different ways. And that might not make sense to a lot of you guys, but I'll clarify. Now, I like to go down into a tie down and consequence of doing nothing before I get into my pitch and my presentation. Tie down is very simply, so Jen or Jeff or whatever, whoever my prospect is, right? Hey, do you feel like if you had high intent first party in market data in your campaigns to increase your targeting, you could hit those lower cost per lead and cost per acquisition? Well, yeah, right. If I had, perfect data and I could target better, I do think I could hit those. Great. Now I've just tied him down to him saying, if I have your solution, I can hit my goal. And it's much more powerful for him to say than for me to say, hey, Jeff, if you use my product, you can definitely hit that goal, right? That's going to come off totally different. You can get a little more expansive about how you do it, and there's just different verbiage, but it's saying the same thing. Basically, if you had X, could you achieve Y? And get them to admit to that. And then you could also rip that away, right? So they might say, yeah, if I had X, I could achieve Y. Okay, and I guess on the flip side of that, Jeff, let's say you aren't, we don't come to an agreement, you don't decide to go with our data company, and you just keep running ads, letting Facebook waste some of your money in their testing phase and budgeting, right? And you're not able to solve this problem. And let's just say your rising ad costs continue for the next 3 weeks, 3 months, hell, 3 years. What effect is that going to have on your business? Well, Ray, if it keeps happening for 3 more weeks, so be it, we'll survive. If it keeps happening for 3 more months, I'll probably kind of be a little pissed at myself because I'm on this call actively looking for a solution. If our ad costs aren't better and they keep rising for 3 more years, to be honest, I don't even know if we'll still be in business at this rate, right? Get them to say what will happen. And then that's where I'll go into the pitch. Totally. I totally agree with you, Jeff. And we definitely don't want to see that happen. You keep having rising ad costs, not get a solution in 3 years, you're out of business. I agree with you. That's worst case scenario, but we don't want to see that happen. So is it cool if I dive into my presentation and show you exactly how we've helped other, advertisers lower their cost per lead, lower their acquisition, increase profitability, and also enhance their targeting? Is it cool if I run you through our process? Yeah, Ray, that'd be awesome, right? And then, so I ask permission. I don't ever go into price yet. I just go into the demo, education, deliverables or features versus benefits, etc. And you guys have heard me talk about this. I like to use visual aids. So one of the things we provided to you is a pitch deck, visual aid, right? I might be using a slideshow. I might demo inside the platform, right? But use whichever is applicable. Now, for my reps in our particular offer, they have an ebook resource. They have a DaaS document. They had, well, when we were offering it, we used to offer single product packages. We no longer do. But we can overview, screen share as you present, because a lot of people are visual learners. So as much as you're explaining it, if they can see a visual that correlates to the explanation, a lot of people are just going to understand it, relate to it, and pick it up better, which is going to make it easier when you actually go in for the close. Now, once I'm done presenting, I like to go into the temp check, my 1 through 10. And I think a lot of people overlook this or maybe downplay its importance, but this is very, very important to do. And once I've gone through it and showed them, it's like, okay, Jeff, so finance aside, because we didn't dive into that, because obviously that has to line up and make sense. But in terms of what I've broken down for you, in terms of our software, our platform, and our solution, on a scale of, say, 1 to 10, 1, Ray, you're ugly, let's hang up now. 10, I need this in my business yesterday. Where do you kind of fall on that spectrum, right? And I really want to understand, this is showing me how much they've bought into the efficacy and the certainty within my solution or my product. The higher they are, obviously, the more in the buying pocket they are for the close. And again, I go into that in a little more depth. I explain that more in the video just because I want to leave time for a Q&A. We're running on time. I'm not going to go super depth into that. And then also, once we get, again, I like this to be an 8 or higher. Under an 8, I probably won't even dive into price. I'll probably go back through this exercise and rehash and get them to rethink and get them up to an 8. But let's say they say, hey, right, I'm a 9 out of 10. I definitely want this in my business yesterday. I'm just going to go ahead and assume the sale at this point, which a lot of people just don't do. They get really like, this guy just told you I'm a 9 out of 10. They told you earlier in the call, yes, if I had X, I could get Y. If I had your data, I could hit 20K months, whatever that is. So I just dive into assuming the sale. Okay, Jeff, so perfect. So the last P is the investment, and that's the best part. In order to achieve those 20K months and lower those cost per lead and cost per acquisition, so you never have to worry about rising ad costs again and potentially going out of business in the next few years. It's just whatever the price is. In this case, it was $7,500 to get started. As long as that lines up, we accept credit or debit. What works best for you? Literally do that and then just sit back and shut up. I've had at least 20% of the time, it could even be higher, where people literally just pull out their credit card and they're like, hey, Ray, it's a Visa 126, and they start reading it off. So believe it or not, that can happen. The other 80% of the time, we're going to get a small little objection here. And then I have a very good overcoming objection framework. I'm biased. I like to say the best, and other people use this as well. So it's not like, we're the only ones that are teaching or recommending this, but then I dive into like my AAA framework for overcoming objections, which is simply to acknowledge where they're coming from, to agree, and then to ask a question to a layer deeper to ultimately chunk it down and find out what the real objection is. So, hey, Ray, everything sounds great, and I'm a 9 out of 10. But, before I invest $7,500, I'm a little skeptical because I paid for a data company before and I got burned in the past, right? Hey, I totally get where you're coming from, Jen. There's a lot of overpromising and under-delivering in this space. And I agree, there are other data providers that may have made certain promises and they didn't deliver. But what you might not have known is how accurate that data was historically, how good the match rates were. So let me ask you, Jeff, if you had data that was hitting 80% accuracy and 50% match rates, do you think it would have been profitable as opposed to the 40% accuracy and 20% match rates? Right? So now I can compare apples to apples. He might just be saying, hey, I paid before. They told me this. I didn't get that result. I'm skeptical. I'm hesitant. Totally get where you're coming from. I've seen this in the market, but let's compare apples to apples. I don't think you were getting the highest quality, accuracy, and match rates out of your data. And if you had that, would you agree that it would have performed better? Oh, yeah. Well, let me show you our accuracy as opposed to the last company you went with, our match rates as opposed to that company. Now, if you had these results, now that it's night and day, what's stopping you from investing? Oh, that makes sense, right? Okay, let's go ahead and move forward, right? Could be that, whether it's the spouse objection, whether it's finance, it's always that same framework. And then this is how to keep going through that further and further. And then what I did below here, guys, is I put in actual transcripts from each objection from our sales reps, our sales calls. So all I did was take the transcript and copy and paste it here. So this is an example where we got the partner spouse. This is what the prospect said. This is what me, the rep, said. Prospect me, prospect me. Again, that's the whole process. This is bad timing. I'm in another program. I'm on vacation, whatever, bad timing. Cool. Here's what the prospect said. Here's what we said. I'm in another program currently, or I've invested more in the past. Cool. Here's the whole verbiage and framework. I'm not sure if I trust you guys. I need to think about it. I need to think about it, guys. Why I have it saying trust/think is if anybody says I need to think about it, what they're really saying is I don't fully trust you. Okay, so just kind of make that acknowledgement in your head. But when they say that, cool, this is the verbiage and the framework that we use. So the price is the issue, and this is the one we always want to tie them down to. If we can always have it come down to price, and then we have an effective strategy for how to dive into finances, which we will show you. This one's going to be a little more depth because we show you how to actually dive into finances, how to go into financial breakdowns. I literally get times where the prospect will bring up their available balance of their checking, of their credit card, of their savings, and show me what they have to work with. So whether it's today, tomorrow, next week, we can actually map out when is the best time for them to invest. So again, all this is included in the document and resources that I provided here in this chat today. And I wanted to go over as much in the first, I got it, in the first 50 minutes of this that I could, so we could save a little time for a Q&A. So what I would like is if you guys have any questions, anything, and even comments, hey, something you're going to take away and apply, do me a favor and just type a 1 in the chat or either put the hand raise emoji up. And I'm just going to go check the chat real quick. 1 for Bill. Bill, you're quick. You're the first one I see. Everything else for 4. Bill, question, thoughts, go ahead.
Very quick. Apologies, I was late for the call. But my question is, how can we get, or I get, access to the docs, the master doc sales, the stuff that can we get access to that?
Yeah, 100%. Give me 2 seconds. 2 seconds.
Thank you, sir.
All of that, excuse me, I'm not sure when you came in today, and let me just copy and paste it one more time.
I was late.
Yeah, totally. And that's why I drop it a few times, and that's a totally great question.
Oh, okay, I didn't even see it.
Right within this document, look in the chat right now. I'm just hitting enter. That has everything I just covered on the call outside of that in-depth slideshow. That slideshow, I actually go through again. Oh, you were late, so you probably didn't even see the slideshow part. But all the docs and scripts and everything I talked about is included right in this document there.
Oh, just this one pager right here?
That one pager. Numbers 3 and 4 within that number 4 and 5 within that are the 2 scripts I just covered, the triage and the sales call framework.
You're a scholar and a gentleman. Thank you, sir.
I try like hell. Thank you. Awesome. So, Carrie, you have a question.
Yeah, great stuff as usual, right? Thank you so much. Always drinking from a fire hose, as they say. So
sorry about that. It's a blessing and a curse.
No,
I love that.
Better that way than a drippy faucet, I guess.
I hope so.
Cool. I got 2 questions for you. The first one relates to the Audience Lab Pixel and the retarget versus a Facebook retargeting pixel. So, is there any difference other than the Audience Lab Pixel identifies everyone? I mean, all their data versus the Facebook, which is anonymous, and then do you replace it, or do they ideally have both running at the same time?
They actually have separate objectives and separate things they do. So number one, yeah, great question. There's 2 main differences between the Facebook Pixel and the Super Pixel. Number one is Facebook Pixel can only retarget and draft people or graph people that are within and active on Facebook. So the big difference is you might get website visitors that are never on Facebook that you can't track there. So the Super Pixel is retargeting your website visitors, which is the second aspect. The Super Pixel from Facebook can't resolve the identity of your bounce web visitors. They can only retarget Facebook traffic. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So cool. This is more about, my Super Pixel is more about getting your site visitors resolved identities and retargeted, where the Facebook Pixel is more about retargeting your Facebook audience, people that have already commented or clicked or engaged with your, but a lot of those website visitors might not be active on Facebook. They might not have ever clicked on your stuff on Facebook. So they kind of have 2 different purposes.
Got it. Cool. And then the second question is, if you were me, how would you say where I got the data? Because obviously, if I can't say I'm a co-founder of Audience Lab and my partner and I put it together. So like, as a client, how would you represent saying, hey, my team got it, or like?
I
would
would
you
say I have
that?
a private licensing agreement that is only open to certain business owners. Lucky I got in with the right partnership, and I have access to this data grid tracking 280 million users, 1.9 trillion behaviors, and up to 60 billion URLs daily. Do you want me to go in and build you your ideal audience? I wouldn't go much more in depth than that.
Got it. So you position it as a private licensing agreement that no, I guess they couldn't obtain because I mean, I don't want to ask, oh, so where'd you get the license? Let me go get it and skip the middleman kind of thing, or does that not really come up?
No, I don't think that really comes up.
Okay.
I've rarely heard that come up. And if we ever get word, like if somebody is trying to circumvent one of our DaaS clients and they're like, hey, I booked with one of your DaaS agencies and then I found your ad, or I did some research and find your company, we're actually going to take them off the call and send them back to you guys. We won't even take that deal. So we're not trying to, we don't want people to, that's why I don't want you to mention Audience Lab, right? Hey, I partnered with a data conglomerate and I have a license into their platform that only limited people have. I can get you this data at a wholesale rate rather than retail like most people. That's it. Keep it basic.
Ray,
Okay.
I just want to thank Carrie for bringing that up because I think that's really kind of a white elephant in the room for many, for some of us about that. So I really appreciate you acknowledging that. Thanks
Carrie
again.
always had good questions. I was on a call with him last week. Was it last week, 2 weeks ago, where we were working out some stuff? He has really good questions. So both of them. I thought the other one you asked earlier too. It's something we should talk about and address more. And people get confused between Facebook's Pixel and Super Pixel. They think they're the same thing when they're different. So both very good questions.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ray.
100%. Jen, I have the opposite problem where no one knows what Audience Lab is. Yeah, right. That's still where we're at, guys. We are very under the radar. We are not like your big corporate data company that's spending hundreds of thousands or millions in ads. We're not Zoom Info. We're not Apollo. We're still very under the radar, and we kind of like it that way. We want you guys to go out there and get a majority of the business. We'll work with the agencies. You guys go work with the brands. We actually, when I talked about a little in this presentation in one of those documents or scripts, I was saying SPP products that we've now removed. Those were our tiers to sell to individual brands. We're trying not to work with individual brands. We want to leave that whole market for you guys. We started going to individual brands. We built in to Audience Lab to be an agency data partner and system that you guys can go make a buck off. And we just make our small margins on the back end because no matter what you guys think, we don't have the team, the capacity, or the budget to go speak to every brand. I don't care who you are or what you do. It's impossible. It's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to partner with good agencies that are already offering good value products and services, or that want to, maybe they're burnt out, right? As some of you guys that joined, and you want to have a lesser fulfillment, less burnout type of high quality, high profit product you can go offer. But we want you guys to go to the brands, and we really push away a majority of brands. And I've only had it happen once or twice now. We've been selling, Audience Lab has been in business since 21, 22 when we officially launched. Our reseller program launched in mid to late 2022. So less than 3 years. I've only had 2 instances where somebody has really tried to circumvent a DaaS seller and get in with Audience Lab. And both times I didn't take them. It's very, very rare, but I think I've heard a lot more concern and apprehension about, hey, what if they go around us than it really actually happens in actual, application. So I'll just, drop that for what it's worth. I see a few more questions on the screen. Let's go to you, Chip. Chip Slayton.
Yeah, hey. I was gonna pitch a real estate guy that actually I'm a personal friend with tomorrow. It's a mid-level agency, and I was just give me an opening liner for me.
Sorry, repeat that one more time. It cut out in my headset for 1 second.
And I have a opening line from you.
What was the start of that? You're reaching out to what though?
A real estate agency.
Cool. And what do we already know about them? Because it's tough for me to give you an opening line without any context. Do we know if they're running ads? Are they B2B, B2C? What do we know about them?
He's going to be running ads, but he does have a website. I think I'm going to take the Pixel avenue for his website.
This is how I would start. Hey, Chip. So while we're on this call today, and what I'm looking to find out here is kind of where you're at and where you're looking to get to in your realtor business. What we do is we work with realtors to give them high quality data that they can embed into their marketing campaign. So we can talk more about that. So whether you're running ads, email outreach, I'd like to know a little more about what you're doing and what you're looking to accomplish. But we have the ability to get you in market data. And then also, I looked at your website really quickly, just out of curiosity. Do you know how many site visitors we're getting to hit that every month and how many people actually opt in? So that's a little lengthy, right? Maybe you would break that down, but that's kind of how I would start it off.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm a personal friend of him. I was just, wanting to know where to start. I don't want to sound too, but that's good.
Salesy.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying, you're like, I don't want to sound, I said too salesy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I get it 100%.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. AJ, question?
Yes. First thing, like you got a good beard, so you have to give advice on beard as well.
Don't cut it.
Second thing is, second thing is like I operate in M&A operations, like mergers and acquisition side.
Gotcha.
How can I use this data to like go for the deals or like help it to launch a deal sourcing campaign or something like that?
So how can you use the data directly to reach out to more of your ideal clients, you're saying?
Yes, or like basically like engage in a conversation with business owners who is interested in selling their businesses or they are looking for the exit or something.
Yeah, well,
Things like
obviously,
that.
first we have to find them, right? So the best place to find them in the database is probably in our business builder, I would say, if I was more in that niche and industry. But then you're really,
Hey, are you still on the?
Oh, sorry, somebody else. I don't know what happened there. But yeah, and on the other side of things, then I want to craft messaging. So again, I might just craft a very simple email copy. Hey, I work with companies looking to sell, or again, this is just off the cuff. I don't know very much about it, but hey, we're looking for businesses that are looking for an exit or to sell in the next 6 months. But we have a database that can help you find ideal buyers and set you up with the deal you're looking for. Would you be interested, right? It could just be something like that. I would probably make it a little more appealing and put a little more time into the copy, but it's really just about crafting a quick little three-phase message that's actually going to get them to say, yes, I'm interested, which is really, hey, this is who I am and what we do. This is who we help and the results we've seen. Would you be interested in hearing more? So however that verbiage would be in that industry, I would just craft some messaging and blast it out in emails to a lot of business owners. I might start some Facebook or LinkedIn outreach campaigns. For that industry, I would do more LinkedIn. But yeah, it's just really that simple, I would say.
Okay, I do have a contact of people who are like doing deals and stuff. Should I get into a mutual beneficial partnership or things like that? And should I execute it or should I alone execute this thing?
If you have the ability, I would always say yes. Yeah, hell yeah. When you have good mutually beneficial partnerships or the potential for them, yeah, you should always look into those. If you can like message me in school a little more about the details, I can walk you through how I might broker that or how I might set that up. I just don't have time right now. I got one more question and I'm kind of late for my next one.
Sure.
But yeah, give me
Appreciate
some
it.
more details. Happy to walk you through that. That's who I was going to go to. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if I pronounced it. Ganesh. Go ahead.
Hey, first of all, great presentation. Thank you, Raymond. Question, is there a fulfillment checklist like you could share if you have one when somebody purchases data from us, like all the like whole shebang, data, the super pixel, and let's say they're using GHL and me as an agency, we're running ads also for them. So is there some sort of a checklist?
A checklist doing what exactly? Just so I'm clear.
Make the best use of Audience Lab.
Okay, so like let's just say from step one to when your client signs up to like the steps you need to do to go execute to fulfill it.
Yeah, fulfillment checklist basically.
I believe we have something like that. If not, I can create it really quickly because I know the steps. So give me a day or two tops. If we already have it, I'll go find it. If I have to create it, give me a day or two and I will send it to you and I'll also go put it in school for everybody. Fulfillment checklist. That's a good, I know we have it. I just got to find where it is and maybe update it. But yeah, I will get that over to you, Ganesh.
Awesome. That'll be helpful.
And then lastly in there, oh, sorry, go ahead. You had more.
So with the super pixel, we're getting a bunch of hits. I mean, like visitors, right? Visitors information. But let's say the client they aren't really great at like picking up the phone and ringing people. In that case, we'll have to help them somehow reach out to them, right? So that's what I'm thinking. Like, we use GHL. What do
Gotcha.
you recommend there? Like setting up some emails? Like GHL
Yeah,
doesn't
it really
encourage
depends.
code.
That's why you kind of want to decide or decipher. Do I want to work with clients that already know how to reactivate the data and just sell them the data back and have them do their things? Or am I willing to work with, less sophisticated and less established businesses that don't know how to reactivate and remarket? If so, yes, you want to build out SOPs. So I would do my recommendation. This is what I would say to somebody I was selling a super pixel. Hey, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to slap this super pixel on your website, and let's just do easy math here. Let's say they get 10,000 hits. My pixel is going to resolve approximately 30 to 60% of your bounce visitors. This is what I recommend doing. And let's say my pixel performs at worst case scenario. We resolve about 30%. That's about 3,000 people. This is what I would do. I would take that audience of 3,000. I would loop it right into a Facebook retargeting ad saying, hey, Mr. Prospect, we saw you visited our Costco website here in the last 30 days. We're sad to see you didn't become a member of our Costco family or opt in for our free newsletter. Here's a discount, 25% off your entire first purchase if you check out in the next 24 hours. So I would just do a very redirect retargeting campaign. Hey, you already visited our website. We're sorry to see you didn't opt in for whatever. Here's a little discount. I would also, if they're not running ads, do the same thing in an email campaign. Do it in an SMS campaign, but just very with the pixel, that's the best retargeting. It's just very direct. Hey, we saw you on our site. You dropped off, you didn't make a purchase, whatever, and then give them a little discount, cost of inaction to move forward today.
Awesome. Is there an automatic way of connecting this super pixel data to the Facebook retargeting
Yeah,
campaign, or is it
100%. Hit up Andrew Ruffino on the team. He can help you. He can help guide you through that, or whoever you need to talk to. I don't do that personally, but there's definitely ways to automate that data from, hey, this is who we resolve, shoot it right into an ad manager or right into an email autoresponder or whatever.
okay?
Yes, we can.
So you're talking GHL campaigns, or like feeding that information into the the Facebook retargeting
We can
campaign?
basically, whatever data we resolve, whether it's billing them a list, whether it's the pixel resolved identities, we can go and set up an automation or a webhook to pretty much zap it anywhere. So do you want it in an ad campaign, or do you want it to go into GHL? You can't pick two. You gotta you can have it going one or the other.
Got it.
But
What's
you
the
could basically
market
take
name you
that data,
mentioned?
you can loop it into an ad manager for retargeting. You could loop it into an email autoresponder, just blast email. You could loop it right into GHL, run your email and SMS out of there. But I don't think you can do it to multiple channels at once. Again, you'd have to check with my tech team who actually does that day in and day out. But yes, wherever the data comes from, we can set up an automation to just loop it into wherever they want to run their marketing, basically.
Awesome. What's the name again? Rufino?
Andrew Ruffino. Andrew is his first name, last name Ruff. He's the only Andrew R, I think. But if you look him up in school, or I can send you his direct email if you'd like. I'll send it to you right here in the chat. Give me 2 seconds. And then I saw, Annette, before I hop off, and let me just make sure, I did have another call scheduled next, but I don't think I have, let me just check something. I don't think I have anybody in that waiting room there. If not, I'll just stay on here longer. No, I don't see anyone in that waiting room. So I'll stay on another minute or two and answer one or two more of these. So Annette, you said, I need an elevator pitch to answer the question, what is it you actually do? So I don't know what you actually do, but this is what I would say if somebody asked me specifically, right? I can definitely give you one if I know a little more about it. But when somebody comes on a call or in an email or in a Facebook Messenger thread, hey Ray, what is it you actually do? Well, we are a data and technology company, which basically we have our own super graph tracking 280 million users, 1.9 trillion behaviors, and 60 billion URLs daily. What we do is we build in-market, high-intent, first-party audiences so people can use them in their ad campaigns to lower their costs. That's what we do. Now, if you do other stuff, like if you also run ads or create content, I might mix that in, but that's how I would answer that if somebody, had reached out and asked me. That's one thing I do for a lot of clients is I just create their pitch and their verbiage for like how to say what they do in a short period of time. Because I know a lot of business owners struggle with that, or somebody asks what they do and you come back with 4 paragraphs and you bore the person on the other end, right? So like the more clear and concise, clear over clever always. Just get it across. This is what we do. And then cool, awesome. Or hey, would that benefit you? Would you like to know more? Right. And then it's a simple conversation. No, this isn't for me. Or yes, that's awesome. That's what I'm looking for. So really quickly, you're going to get a yes or a no. So you don't have to go too far into the conversation to really, waste anyone's time, yours or the other person. All right, guys. Yeah, Andrew Ruffino, and that's what I'm going to do for you real quick. Let me just type in his direct email. I'll send it over to you here, Ganesh, so you can reach out to him. Any questions you have about the Pixel and those automations, Andrew is our Pixel guy, and he works with that stuff every day, all day, so he's going to be able to answer your questions better. And Andrew is very, very responsive. So I just dropped his email address directly in the chat there for you, Ganesh. Copy and paste it. Feel free to go shoot him an email. Any questions you have, or he can set up a time to maybe get on a call, walk you through it, etc. Cool.
Excellent.
So yeah,
Thank you so much. I appreciate
let me go, guys. After the call recording, I mean, after this session, for anybody that jumped in late or that wants to watch it back, and I know I cover a lot, and I'm a fast talker. So no matter what school community you're in, within an hour or so every Tuesday, I will have the replay uploaded there, and I will be on the hunt for that checklist, because I think not only you but a couple other people mentioned in here, and I think that's a really good thing to have. In the past, we created that initially for what we called our VTV partners, people that we partnered with, and we built out their whole agency for them. But what we should have really done at that time is also break down and give a DaaS checklist. So let me go in and find what we have and just optimize that a little for our DaaS clients, and I'll have that produced to you guys maybe end of day today, but give me till tomorrow just to be safe. I don't know how much time I'll have. Awesome. Great. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed the workshop. You got some value out here. And as I always say, at least find one thing that you can take away and go implement immediately, because that's what we're really looking for out of these workshops. I can give you a lot of information, but if you don't actually implement or execute, I feel like I'm just talking for nothing up here. So guys, don't make me do that, please. Go implement, go execute, go crush some stuff, go close some deals. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you next Tuesday, same time, same place. Appreciate it, Dwayne. I will get you over the info we talked about as well. Cool. I actually have to copy and paste that link you sent me one more time just to make sure I don't lose it. Perfect.